Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Several people sent me a story regarding a silly lawsuit. Trevor, Eric, and Caleb all knew I'd like this one because someone has filed a lawsuit against a brand of bread called King's Hawaiian. King's Hawaiian. And they're being sued for not actually making the sweet rolls they make in Hawaii. So the argument is you can't call them King's Hawaiian if they're not made in Hawaii. And the lawsuit was filed apparently by a plaintiff in New York. And the question is, would you really want rolls made in Hawaii to be sold in New York? It seems like that's an awful long way for a roll to travel and still taste good at the other end. But Hawaii News Now wrote one story. I found another story on topclassactions.com. The HNN staff wrote the Hawaii News Now piece. And contrary to popular belief, King's Hawaiian sweet rolls are not actually made in Hawaii. And now a New York resident is suing the makers, claiming that he was misled into buying the rolls. In the class action, the plaintiff said the back label notes that the popular bread product is in fact manufactured in Torrance, California. But he said the front packaging prominently features Hilo, Hawaii, leading people to believe the bread is actually from there. He said in the lawsuit that King's Hawaiian is the leading seller of Hawaiian rolls and essentially invented this category of food, which might lead you to believe that it's a term of art and doesn't actually mean what it says literally. The other question, of course, is that if you saw the front and said one thing, and you flipped it over and the back clarified it, have you been misled? Seems like you now know the truth, so put the rolls back down if you don't want them that are made in Torrance, California. He lists other lawsuits that King's Hawaiian Holding Company filed against competitors to prevent the marketing of Hawaiian rolls. According to his website, King's Hawaiian dates back to the 1950s. When Roberts Tyra first opened the business in Hilo Roberts Bakery, it later expanded to Honolulu, where it was renamed King's Bakery. Eventually, the business moved to Torrance, California, as King's Hawaiian Bakery continues to wholesale its famous sweetbread nationwide. And so, again, it's funny because I've seen Hawaiian rolls. I've seen ads for them. I've also seen them in the supermarket. I always assumed it was a thing. I didn't think it was a place. I mean, I know that Hawaii is a place, but I just assumed that, these are rolls like somebody made in Hawaii or something? I don't know. So from Top Class Actions, a little more detail. The man is from Yonkers, and he bought a pack of King's Hawaiian from his local Stop and Shop this month and realized that there was conflicting information on the labels. Because in the front it says Hilo, and in the back it says made in Torrance, California. So again, front says Hawaiian rolls, back says made in Torrance, California. That confused the man. And here's one of the things, and as an attorney, I shouldn't be doing this, but I am. Somewhere down the road, this man might be asked to give a deposition, to testify under oath. And he's going to get asked a whole series of questions about this. Did you go into a store and buy these? Yes. When? Where? How many? Did you examine them before you bought them? Did you read the front? Did you read the back? And they're going to have, by the way, they'll have one of them marked as an exhibit right in front of them. Do you see on the front where it says King's Hawaiian Rolls? Yes. See on the back where it says made in Torrance, California? Yes. Did you see that before you made your purchase? Yes. You were confused by that. Did you honestly think they're still made in Hawaii even though it said made in Torrance, California? Or did you realize that King's Hawaiian is a brand name and Torrance, California is where they're manufactured? Because this entire suit rests upon the notion that people buy these, including him, based on the belief they're made in Hawaii. And you might say, but Steve, maybe in a class action, other people, no. If you read the caption of a class action lawsuit, it'll say John Doe and all others similarly situated. So the person who's the class rep has to be a good example of what the class is made up of. And if the class is made up of people who were confused by the packaging, he has to have been confused by the packaging. And that could be a problem. So he points out that they essentially invented this category and points out the fact that the company itself has defended Hawaiian rolls. I'm not sure why that becomes relevant, but the complaint specifically lists 4 lawsuits that King's Hawaiian filed against its competitors, including 2 against Aldi. The plaintiff says today's consumer tastes have come to recognize there are lots of options on the market and they want genuine food products. For many consumers, authenticity has overtaken quality as the prevailing purchasing criterion, his lawsuit says. And again, authenticity. If these are made by the original company, King's Hawaiian, then they are authentic. The plaintiff admits that an average shopper likely knows that King's Hawaiian is simply the name of the company. He admits that in the complaint. Reasonable consumers understand that the term Hawaiian rolls by itself does not denote a roll made in Hawaii any more than a moon pie is made on the moon, he says. However, he points out in the class action suit that Hilo Hawaii is prominently shown on the front of the package, causing consumers to believe the product is made in Hawaii. Or, kind of like when Chrysler ran ads showing Chrysler products driven around in Detroit and goes, made in Detroit. Those cars weren't made in Detroit. But Chrysler is from Detroit, and Detroit has a heritage of making automobiles. So everyone knows that those made in Detroit cars, despite being assembled someplace else, often in other countries, come from a Detroit automaker. By the way, King's Hawaiian, according to the complaint, has a fraudulent intent, and it's evinced by its failure to accurately identify the product's immediate place of origin, where it's made, as opposed to where it's from, and it knows that it would mislead customers, despite the fact that right on the back of the package says made in Torrance, California. In case you're curious, the makers of Hawaiian Host candies are in court over alleged misleading claims on their boxes of chocolates. Plaintiffs filed the class action in November, and somebody else is also suing Heineken's Tecate beer, claiming that it is not from Mexico. And this, of course, is formed as a class action, and we'll see what happens. The case is filed in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. We've heard a lot about these kinds of lawsuits, and a lot of them fizzle up and just disappear. And another example that I can recall, but I never saw what happened to it. I don't know, might still be pending. Somebody sued Home Depot, I believe, in Lowe's, claiming that 2x4s are not 2x4. And it's one of those things that a 2x4 is a piece of wood. And in the old days, it was a length of wood that was 2 inches thick and 4 inches wide, 2x4. Over the years, 2x4s have shrunk. And I think it's more like 1 3/4 by 3.5, something like that. But they shrank a long, long time ago, but people still call them 2x4s. 2x4s. It's a term of art, 2x4, 2x4. No one ever says 2 inch by 4 inch, 2x4, 2x4. And so somebody actually filed a lawsuit, class action, stating that all of these people who go to Home Depot and Lowe's and buy lumber are being misled into thinking that 2x4s are 2x4. But there's like 15 things wrong with that argument, one of which is that when you walk into the store and look at it, you can see how big it is. It's not in a package, it's not in a wrapper. And number two, they haven't been 2 inches by 4 inches for years. And I remember discussing this. I know people who are builders. I actually know several people who are builders. We've talked about this, how these things have changed over time. And it seems absurd. But a lot of lawsuits, unfortunately, get filed by people who just go, well, we're going to sue a big, deep-pocketed company and see if we can't get some money out of them. But this is a weird one. This is a weird one because the packaging says right on it they're made in Torrance, California. And the plaintiff appears to be saying, yes, but I'm speaking for the people who read only the front of the package and not the back. And again, a Hawaiian roll, it's a thing. It's a type of thing. It's like a Detroit style pizza. I don't know how else to say it. I think everyone gets this. So it is a class action lawsuit. It's been filed in New York, and the man was confused by the King's Hawaiian rolls, and he admits that he realized they weren't made in Hawaii, but he thinks other people might be. But he'd still like to represent those people, even though they're confused differently than he was. And I think it's always a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing. When people actually say, I wasn't confused by this, but I think other people are. You presume you are smarter than other people. We've all met people who think they're smarter than others. And it's often not the case. So when someone walks into a lawyer's office and drops a thing of King's Hawaiian rolls on the desk and goes, I want to sue these people. Jackie Childs. I want to sue these people. And the lawyer picks it up and goes, oh, King's Hawaiian Rolls, made in Torrance, California. What do you want to sue them about? Well, I thought they were made in Hawaii. Did you really? Well, I didn't, but other people might. Okay, go find me one of those people. And then we might have a class action. Until that point, I don't think you do. I don't think you do. But again, that's just me. So what can I tell you? So Trevor, Eric, and Caleb, thanks for sending it to me. King's Hawaiian being sued for not actually making its sweet rolls in Hawaii. The story from topclassactions.com, by the way, was written by Brian White. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. You measure the size of your accomplishment by the obstacles you had to overcome to reach your goals.